Hey, it's time. We are so excited to be with you to talk about something that I think is so crucial this time of year, which is declutter. So, we're going to declutter the podcast to help you declutter your life. And I am sitting in the most decluttered place ever, which I will show in a little bit. We all know that there's science about our environments and how they impact our productivity, our feelings, our moods, even our health. And so I think it's kind of I give it the pantyhose analogy this time of year. Holidays come and we put up a lot of decorations and a lot of stuff. And I always get so excited. But the days I get to take it down and have that kind of blank slate house again, it's like taking off the pantyhose. It's like it feels so
I
good.
was just waiting. I was like, what is this analogy going to be? And I'm like, oh,
Where's she going with this?
yeah,
Where's she going with this?
exactly right. I love that. That's such a good analogy because I feel the same way. We talked on a prior podcast about how we put the decorations up, November 9th this year because,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You were early.
right. And we were like, you know what? How many years do we have him at home? Not long. So go ahead, put it up. And now I'm already like, I can feel those pantyhose are just already starting to want to
You're
come off.
ready. You're ready. So,
Gosh.
if you haven't guessed, today we're going to talk about the science behind decluttering. And it's so funny as we were prepping for this, or I should say, as Lindsay was prepping for this and feeding me knowledge. I think there's so many key points, and I don't want to give too many spoilers, but I just identified and resonated with so many of these things. And some of the time, my kids are like, "Why do you like to vacuum?" And I'm like, "Because it starts one way and you see completion." And I think when we don't get to check things off our list or see a sense of progress, like visually see a sense of progress, sometimes it can get very discouraging. We can feel really overwhelmed. And so I think you can even use decluttering as a tool to like promote that mindset, and you declutter in the meantime.
Yes, yes. Well, it's a little bit of this catch-22, right? Like, we're not trying to be all consumerism for the holidays. We know there's a bigger meaning about giving and connecting with family and the joy and celebration of Christmas. But the practical reality is a bunch of junk gets purchased and given. And I don't mean that in a like negative term that it's junky. It's just like it's a lot of stuff happens, right?
It's lots of stuff.
Happens. And even though you and I have both talked about and tried to instill this idea of experiences over things, somehow I'm looking at a Christmas wish list that has things.
Hmm.
So, one of our strategies, as you and I were talking about getting into the holiday season and trying to de stress it, was to de stress the environment that we're in. So, we can't really do anything
Hmm.
about the holiday decorations. That's part of the gig. But we can do some preemptive decluttering in order to make room for the new stuff coming in. And then also, one of the things that we found really beneficial about this little exercise is we get our kids to get engaged in the decluttering, and it
Hmm.
actually helps the awareness of the consumerism and the stuffness
Yes.
and trying to take it down a notch. We have seen a little bit of that residual benefit of, okay, maybe I'm just thinking more about like a couple of big things instead of like 25 things from, little knit to nats kind of stuff.
Right. Right. And we've started a rule in our house that if you get a new something, one that you have gets given away. And so you get a new bathing suit, you're going to give a bathing suit you have away. Like new shoes, a pair of shoes goes away. Just because of that, you turn around and, we are fortunate that we can do these things for our families, but at the same time, it there becomes a lack of appreciation for what I already have, and maybe a lack of awareness. And so I think that yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah. And I think one of the other kind of fringe benefits that was interesting when we started talking about this decluttering with, at least with our kids, is we talk about this with stuff and food. We're like, it's not just the thing we're throwing away, it's all of the resources that went into that thing that get thrown
right,
away, right? So the whole value chain, the time, the environment, the human
right.
labor, all of that. And so another thing that happened unexpectedly was our kids have gotten really into things like Thread Up and Poshmark.
Hmm. Hmm.
They haven't sort of shed the new of everything, but for some things they're like, oh, this is something that I just want to get an upcycled thing. And so that's
Yes,
been kind of nice to see as well. So we will just
absolutely.
rattle off the science because I know all of our crew and cohort that's listening to this knows this, but they might need some of the science to recount to their community or their family if they're trying to get decluttering support. So this doesn't need to be another
Absolutely.
thing that just the parent does. There is that we're going to make it easy for you if it is just you, as it often is. But in the event you want to get a team effort, these are kind of the four pillars of why it's worth wrestling it with kids or whoever you're doing it with your community. One, as you've just described, is it is a measurable decrease in your cognitive load to have less stuff around. Even if you're one of those people that likes things super decorated, if you can get clear in your mind that it actually is a release of cognitive load to shed things in your peripheral vision, in your environment when you're around.
Like, you know, I've become acutely aware of this. It's funny, even back in my operating room days,
Hmm.
how distracting it would be to go into somebody else's operating room as an anesthesiologist if you were taking over their case or going in to help them, and if there was stuff everywhere,
Yeah.
and how easy it was to make a mistake. And so, that was one of our principles of being in the operating room. And when I used to teach residents is, this is your workspace. It is clean, it is organized, it is decluttered. Because if you have 30 syringes of medications out there, the chances that you pick up the wrong one, much higher than if you have one, the one that you need. And others can be stored in places where they can be very easily accessed, but not everything needs to be out all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there is the reality that whether you intentionally recognize it or not, subconsciously, your brain is having to exert energy to visually process everything around you. So just, it's a quantity question. If you
Yep,
have a lot out there, even if you say, I don't care, I like it cluttered, your brain actually doesn't. Your brain,
it doesn't.
it doesn't like that.
I laugh at home because my home office, now where I spend the majority of my time, was always the storage room of lost things. So, my dear husband and partner, who I love dearly, he is very good at picking up the rest of the downstairs, but it all goes in it doesn't get put away. All goes in because nobody used that room for a long time. Well, now that I sit in that room 12 or 14 hours a day, it's funny. This is the perfect time to have this conversation because as soon as I get home on Wednesday, I'm going to go back and declutter because it was so bad. I mean, mountains of stuff. I looked like a hoarder in there, to then being crystal clean, and now it's slowly creeping up again. So this is the perfect conversation to motivate me.
Yes. And to motivate your partner to realize you can't put it in there because it's taxing my cognitive load. So that's
It
that.
does. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
related to that, though, the second reason, right, is a sense of subconscious control. So when you have
Yes.
things that are decluttered and messy, I think the research study that was kind of the most profound was the University of Connecticut that found if you were in this like really stressful time, the ability to actually clean helps you feel like you have controls. It's your great example of vacuuming, right? It's like I feel like that is a task that I can see start to finish. It's clean and it's a sense of control when your environment is not only clean, but when you clean up your environment, it gives you a sense of,
Yeah. And I think I don't think we can underestimate the therapeutic value of that. And, we can read you study after study, but I think it's just that almost internal sense of well being that you have when you go from a cluttered, disorganized, maybe dirty area to having something organized and clean. And you feel refreshed, you feel revitalized, you have a hormonal shift, which I know we're going to talk about. Like it does change your inner physiology.
yeah, yeah, which is, it's powerful. And it's one that can help you motivate when you're saying to your kids, clean your room. You have some control if you clean your room.
Exactly.
Now, the third one, I always think of you because you are the expert and the inspiration on how to create good sleep and good sleep hygiene. And so I think the studies around this were really interesting that even when you sleep in a cluttered environment, people sleeping in a cluttered environment, the studies show that they have a higher incidence of sleep issues. They just insomnia, wakefulness, or low grade sleep. They don't get into deep sleep, they don't get into REM because
Hmm.
consciously your brain's aware of this clutter.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about that, if you look at some of the environments that are really designed to promote sleep, you look at, I think today, that we're so familiar with the wellness industry and wellness resorts and things like that. Rooms are very simplistic.
Yes.
There's not a lot in there, right? It's like there are not a lot of knickknacks. There are, I always laugh. We keep like 27 pillows on our beds at home. When
Yeah.
you go into places that are designed to sleep, there's like the 4 pillows on the bed that you sleep with.
That's right. That's right.
And so it's like, it is, again, yes, there is absolutely visual value in feeling like you like the space and you like the way it looks and it feels good to you. But can you do that a couple steps back?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because the last one is just this overall sense of well-being is tied to a clean, clutter-free environment. I think it was the study that was in kind of Science Direct was the one that we most recently came across that just showed home clutter variables drive perception of wellness and happiness. So, we're going to all be stressed because it's the holidays, but if we can take a few things out of the environment we're in, it can just help take it down one level, and
Mhm.
continue to as we declutter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I mean, I even think about this, like everything can get cluttered this time of year. Our tables can get cluttered with so many different types of food, and we feel pressure to create these very complex meals. And even going back to what you're saying, it's like, yes, there's kind of tradition and what everybody expects, but do we really need all of that? How much do we actually even consume? Right. And it's like, yes,
Right.
there's tradition stuff, but I was talking to our family yesterday and I said, what do we want to eat this holiday? We've gone from 20 people to 5. And
Right.
so I'm like, can we just like kind of cook like a normal meal instead of having course after course and we spend all day cooking, all day cluttering
Yes.
a kitchen to
Yes.
sit down and eat a gluttonous amount of food, to be very honest, and then have all of that cleanup left to do too because there's so much stuff.
Right. Right. Well, and I mean, you are such a champion of just being cognizant of the neuroscience in everything we do. And so
Hmm.
you mentioned the hormones.
Yeah.
The neuroscience behind that is the effort to declutter increases dopamine.
I mean,
It's a dopamine kicker and it decreases cortisol. So even if you just want to describe it to your community or family of like, hey, I'm trying to help you rewire your brain with the right neurochemicals for happiness, here's a path.
right. Right. Well, and I think that's so true. I mean, and again, that some of that goes back to a sense of completion, right? When we talk about dopamine and that kind of pleasure hormone coming in, is you get that when you have that sense of completion and that sense of, I'm going to go out and say victory, like you've conquered this, like you've won, like this is a big deal. And so being able to do those things is what's triggering the dopamine. And then that helps us lower our cortisol when we can walk into a room and take a deep breath and let our eyes relax and not be so visually overstimulated. It really does like ramp down the cortisol. And it's funny, that I remember when I used to go shopping with my mom and we would go in a department store and she's like, I just can't, there's
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
It was like she could handle like the smaller, more boutique stores, and I even think about when you're in other countries, right? We are the big box store capital, and you walk in and it's so overwhelming. Versus if you go to the fish stand to get your fish
Right.
and you can concentrate, and then you're at the bakery to get your baked goods and you can concentrate. So it can ripple into all portions of our life.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is not necessarily a scientific reason why it's a good idea to declutter now, but it is, for me at least, it's a great motivator is to think of it. It's hard not to. We're in the middle of transitioning from one year to the next, right? So part of
Hmm.
the decluttering effort can be this connection to I'm letting go of this old stuff. I'm shedding, what am I shedding to make room for what 2026 is going to
Hmm.
be?
Yeah.
And, the physical shed is as much of the connection point to the emotional shed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do we make it easy, right? It's like with everything, okay, science says it's good. And I think, you talked about this so well just with your office. It's like starting with one space. You don't have to declutter everything, but just pick one zone. It doesn't even have to be one whole room. It could just be one zone of a room. Yeah.
I think that's critical. Like, I think when you look at the whole room, sometimes it is overwhelming. And so I love the idea of like pick a zone and start there. Because sometimes you need that zone to move other stuff into as you keep going. And so I think that that's really important. And I love not only pick a zone, pick a time limit.
Yeah.
Start with one zone, give yourself 15 or 20 minutes because one, it keeps you focused. Two, you don't get like down the rabbit hole a little bit.
Yeah.
And three, you can see your sense of accomplishment in 15 minutes.
Yeah. I love that. So you get to claim victory. You get the dopamine kicker. It doesn't have to be, you've decluttered everything to get that reward. You've done your 15
Right.
minutes and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So then what are the three bins we gotta put stuff in?
And I think Marie Kondo gave so much awareness to this idea of like, does it bring you joy, right? So either you keep it because it brings you genuine joy and not just sentimental joy. Like, yeah, I think you got to pressure test that. Like sometimes you can take a picture of it for the sentimental value and create
Hmm.
an album in your phone of sentimental treasures. And you can see it digitally, but you don't need the physical anymore. So, do you really need to keep this thing?
Hmm.
Do you need to let it go? So, you sell it, you donate it, or you trash it. And I have to say, our family has been all over the map on selling and donating, and where we have landed is let's donate. It's just the effort to sell something for the amount of dollar financial return.
Hmm.
The community service impact is so much better if it's truly something that
Yeah.
is really valued by somebody. If it's not trash, then if it's sellable, it's donatable. So we
Hmm.
have to say it's either trash, it's going in the landfill, and we're pretty aggressive about saying it's a landfill, mostly because I want to reinforce for kids if they acquire new things. Are you trying to send it to a landfill? Because that's where it's going. Or
Right.
it's genuinely donatable. Like, would you want this if somebody was giving it to you? So it's keep it, let it go. And then in some cases, and I would say this is in the 10% case, this just needs to be in a different location. Everything has a home. And
Hmm.
in your office are not necessarily all let go, but they are definitely other locations.
For sure. Absolutely. And I think that I love that idea of saying the words like landfill, right? Because the stuff has to go somewhere. I think another really fun thing to do is, talk to your friends, right? It's like I've gotten some of my most favorite things from a friend that says, I just don't wear this anymore. I think you'd really like it. And I think like having those conversations, I think is kind of fun, or getting together with a group of friends and saying, let's, mix and match here, and then we'll donate what nobody wants anymore. And it's kind of a really good way, a sustainable way to recycle things, reuse things, repurpose things. So, I back to your, can you take a picture of it? There's some great services now. I remember when we moved from California to Utah, packing boxes of kids art. That's your sentimental point is there. You're like, can I
Yes,
throw this away? And
yes,
every once in a while they'd be like, where's that picture I made in second grade? I was,
yes.
I don't know. But there are, if you have a hard time with sentimental objects, there are some really cool companies where you can take your kids' art or a group of things and send them away, and they digitize it, but they make you a physical book.
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so now instead of having boxes of paper, you have a cool little book that can, be stored, can be passed down if you want to give it to your kids later. So I know I've started, each kid has a binder and a folder of kind of, this was more middle school, high school, but awards and different things that they have gathered. And eventually it'll all go in a book for them and they can take it with them, instead of having to store all of that stuff.
Yeah, and as I think you and I both lived through the experience of having to metabolize our parents' things, right?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
one of the best gifts that my mom gave me was she sent me suitcases full of things that she had been holding on to of mine. And it was a gift because I realized I didn't need it. Like,
Yeah.
why?
Same, same.
So she had been so, sentimentally, and it was all from a place of love, holding on to it, but it has made it really easy for me to let go of our kids' stuff because I know I did not even value it, and I am a relatively sentimental person, so letting that stuff go. And I think, you talk about the digital services for pictures. I just came across one called iMemories, which is how we digitized all of our old like VHS, CDs,
Yeah.
also physical, like those things that you hold on to. And it makes it much easier to share, to actually do
Hmm.
something with the media than other
Yeah.
boxes of it, like,
Yeah.
photos and stuff that just took a bunch of space. And it's like, we don't need that. So we just digitized it all, and it's called iMemory, super easy.
Nice. And I have to say that my mom was not a sentimental keeper of things. And so I'm trying to I'm much more a sentimental keeper of things than she was. I mean, I got like a little box or something, but it's almost that I think everybody should move every few years. It's like the greatest purge ever.
You should. That's so true. The other thing you can simulate it without actually physically moving is creating a smaller space for the zone. So for example, like in a closet, we just cut off part of it for storage areas and said, we're not going to use that, and just cut it. So it's like we just forced a smaller space, and so
I
that
love
forced
that.
you to declutter stuff. As kids leave the house, and a lot of people in our cohort, that's what's happening. You can also kind of give them the opportunity and say, either you declutter your room or I do. And, it's another way to create a little mental lightweight
Yes.
mode.
Yeah.
So
Love it.
I think whatever you do in the decluttering world is to make sure you end on a high and like give yourself that dopamine victory of we did it. We're mission accomplished. And then maybe program in just like you do a workout 3 to 4 times a week and say, I'm going to do this for the 15 to 20 minutes and
Hmm.
the area.
Hmm. Hmm. And before you know it, you have this beautiful clean area and you feel so much more productive. I think that's the other piece of it is when you start to go back into those spaces, especially if it's a space that you work in, whether, you cook a lot in your kitchen or home office or a place where you spend a laundry room, a place where you spend a lot of time doing things. When those spaces become clean and you're able to utilize them, your efficiency increases, your performance increases along with your mood. So it's, yes, you get that dopamine hit, but you also get these performance advantages that kind of regardless of what you're doing from, solving world peace to folding laundry, all of it can get done more efficiently and with a little more joy because you're not fighting, tripping over everything that's in your way.
Yes, yes. And we actually worked with a professional organizer. So that's another way to get at this problem when you move, right? Is to hire somebody to help. And she was amazing. But one of the things that she taught me that I was like, I use this rule all the time is like, do you really need this or could you rent it in the occasion that you do? So, we had like 58 wine glasses. I mean, if we have a dinner party that needs that, like we can rent that. So there are some things that you're holding on to because you're like, I just might need that. Or, and you really, if I do, I'll go get it for that special occasion that I need
Right, right,
that quantity of the item.
right, right. So, all right, what's next?
So I think just keeping it simple, keeping it time bound, and giving yourself a sense of victory is the easy way to get it done. And also actively programming it in your week, like you would program anything else. I use the workout as an example, but if you don't program the time, then it's one of those things that just sits in your head. You don't get it
Hmm.
done. And then when you do take the time to do it, it's like feels like you're in the rabbit hole and then you don't want to do it again. So actively just think of it as a rhythm, 3 to 4 times a
Hmm.
week. I'm gonna do my
Love it.
routine.
Okay, so a goal for all of us. And it's funny, my children are always like, "Well, what do you want for the holidays?" I'm like, "I don't want anything. I want," and I've actually asked them to come and do some of this for me because I am a little more sentimental. And I said, "I want you to come and like organize the spot." My youngest daughter, she does our pantry once a week when we go grocery shopping.
Good idea.
It's amazing. She loves it, and it takes her 10 minutes, but same thing. She goes shelf by shelf, she pulls out the bins, she gets rid of what's old, she reorganizes what's new, and then through the week it disintegrates, and then Sunday comes and she does it again, and it feels so good to open that pantry after she's done that. And so these are, I would say, like establishing these habits in your house with your kids can be great. And I think some of them, my oldest daughter not so much, but my younger daughter, like it's carried over into her room. It's carried over into the other spaces where she spends the most time.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to watch.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, so we're cheers to decluttering. So there's less stress in the holiday. There's
Hmm.
space to make way for new ideas and new thinking in 2026.
Yes. And to have
There's more
space.
more joy.
I'm looking behind me at my empty office here. And it's just like, it feels so good to walk in. So anyway, happy 2026. Enjoy your space, your increased dopamine, your decreased cortisol, just because we've decluttered a little. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us here today. If you liked what you heard and you got some tips on how to live better right now and for the long haul, please help us reach more midlife women. Please share and rate and like this show. And we can't wait to continue the dialogue with you on our next episode. Until then, thank you. It's time.